Bread. It appears in every culture around the world and can be traced back at least 14,000 years. That's older than ancient Rome, the Bible. It even dwarfs the Great Pyramids and ancient China on the timeline of humanity. It's used as a symbol, a diplomatic gesture, and even has spiritual meaning to some. And yet, despite all of this history, bread is more controversial than ever. It seems no matter where you go these days, there's a war on bread, or at least gluten. But what the majority of those in the West consume and consider to be bread, I don't consider it really to be bread at all. How do I know this? It's not just me. Ask any chef, baker, or home bread making hobbyist, and they will tell you that there is a massive tell right there on your countertop. My name is Chef Martin. Today I'll introduce you to the only bread recipe your family needs and the mainstay in my household. Welcome to Food and Consequence. Now, as you can see, I got a few things here. You see in the background, I do have my KitchenAid. I am not going to use it today. Absolutely not, because not everybody has a KitchenAid, and this can be done without one. I've done it many times. It's just faster with that. But I'll show you the basic recipe today. A few things that you will need. And if you don't have one, get yourself a kitchen scale. Absolutely. And I use an aluminum or aluminium bowl, depending on what country you're from. So you're going to need that. And these are our ingredients. My channel does not and probably never will have a sponsor. So this is what I'm using. Just local ingredients from your local grocery store. And hey, that's what I bought. So the people that own those companies, eat it. I don't know. Anyways, so this is what we are going to do. So I'll put the recipe up on the screen here in a minute and in the comments. So this is what's called a 700-gram recipe. And in baking, what really matters is the total flour weight. So here I'm going with basically what's called 50-50. I'd never heard of 50-50 until I moved to the UK. With wheat, I'm going 420. So the remainder, your strong white, you're going to go all the way up to your total weight, so 700. You want to do 10 grams of, I use fast-acting yeast. It works just fine. I may get into sourdough in the future. Honestly, sourdough is the same, but it's just a pain in the butt. It's very fiddly. Tastes great, but it's very fiddly. So 10 grams of your fast-acting yeast, 10 grams of sugar, and you look at the volume of yeast for 10 grams compared to the volume of sugar for 10 grams, and it's like you barely put any on the scale. So pay attention to that, folks. Sugar has a lot of consequence. Oh, is it 12 grams of salt? So the sugar just helps the yeast grow. The salt brings out the flavor a little bit more. Salt always brings out flavor. Whisk your dry ingredients first. That way you evenly distribute the yeast, your salt, your sugar, so your yeast can feed off of that easy. And of course, the strong white and the whole wheat. Forgot my wooden spoon. Then once you get that done, you're going to take 70 ml of whole milk, about 380, if I recall correctly, of just lukewarm water. And make sure it's lukewarm water, not cold water, because what you'll end up doing is killing your yeast. And then 3 tablespoons of I use vegetable oil. And away we go. And then obviously mix it with your wooden spoon. Now again, if you have a KitchenAid, a food processor, or something of that nature, use it, especially a dough hook, because that just takes a lot of the effort away. But I just wanted to show folks that this can be done at home without all that equipment. So we start off with the basics. And once you got it mixed in pretty well, then it's time to start getting your hands dirty. All right. Now, if you have a big enough bowl, the great thing is you don't necessarily need to mess up your countertop. You can if you want to, but depends on how everything's going. Now, as we go through here, what'll happen over several minutes is if you got the recipe correct and you're bang on with the hydration, most of this flour will be cleaned up as we push through here. And this recipe is something that I've had to perfect over time. So if you stick to the numbers, you should be a-okay. And that's one of the first tells, how the bread starts sticking together in the bowl is one of the first tells that you got your hydration right. Now, I am not a baker by trade. I am most definitely a chef. I have worked in, I don't know how many restaurants now, between, New York City all the way to Seattle. I've run a kitchen over here now in the UK. Ran a restaurant for a short time, a barbecue restaurant. That was great. But most of my experience is in the main course, the main event. And I like it that way. When it comes to any restaurant, the big thing is the pastry chef. Any restaurant anywhere in the world, the pastry chef walks in and everybody just goes, "Wow, how do they do that? How do they do what they do?" Right? But it's just not my thing. They do have my respect. And anybody who follows my Facebook page has watched me go through, just a phase earlier this year of me mucking around with pastries, and I can do it. It's just not my thing. And as you can see, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of watching a clock on the camera. You want to knead for about 7 minutes. And as you can see, as I knead, it's starting to clean up the bowl itself, which is exactly what we want. And I kind of scrape the bowl with with the dough as you go here. And if you have a dough hook, excuse me, let me move this. If you have a KitchenAid with a dough hook, it'll do the same thing. But if you want to work your forearms, this is a great way to do it. Just so you can see what's happening inside the bowl. When you're kneading, what you want to do is you want to kind of fold it over and push down with the heel of your hand. And that's all I'm doing. And I'll twist, push like that, right? What ends up happening is you're activating the gluten, the thing that everybody hates these days, the fight against gluten. And one of the things we know, and I'll show you later, I don't think, and this is my theory, I'm not a doctor, obviously, I don't think there are as many people that are allergic to gluten as we are led to believe. I don't think it's a conspiracy or anything like that. What I think is it's actually the ingredients in the dough. So you just watched this, and this is the exact same recipe that I use every time. And I have a friend that is gluten intolerant or allergic, what have you. And strangely, she can have this, not all the time, but she can have this without an absolute breakout, right? Your mileage may vary. And what ends up happening when we go to the store and go down that big long aisle to pick our supposed bread from the thousands of choices of loaves, in order for those loaves to stay fresh on the shelf, they load it with gluten. They fortify it with gluten. The other thing is in the grinding process, way back at the mill. They pretty much flatten the grains these days through just machinery. Of course, they want to pump this stuff out and make money. But there's a big difference between what is called stone ground, or stone milled wheat or flour, and industrialized flour. And what that ends up doing is they have to reintroduce gluten into the flour when it goes through these industrial processes, so it has gluten. And of course, they probably put too much, not probably, of course, they put too much in. So I think, and there are many bakers, far more professional out there that deal with this all day, every day, running their stores, and they've seen a major difference between what gluten is like naturally in bread or dough and what it is not. And I've been over 7 minutes here, but we have something like this. So if you've stuck to the recipe and you pretty much have a good hydration, what ends up happening is it's kind of tacky, but you'll notice it doesn't like stick. It doesn't stick. So if this were sourdough is like a gloopy mess, and it kind of rises and forms over time. So what you want to do is you kind of want to roll it into a ball, and eventually when I make pizza on this channel, it's the same sort of thing. Roll it into a ball and you put it back in your, get a clean tea towel that I've prepped, of course, and just drape it over here. If you don't drape over a tea towel, you could use aluminum foil, you could use saran wrap, or what the hell do we call it here? Cling film here in England. You can use that as well. But if you don't cover it, this will dry out, and you'll get some weird kind of crust on here. And you don't want that crust to form, because what's happening is it's losing hydration as the dough rises. So now we are proofing the dough. You can either use warm, and I do mean not warm, a warmed oven, or here in Britain, for those watching here in Britain, we have what are called airing cupboards here, which are wonderful. It's basically the closet where your water heater is. They have shelves in them. I think they are wonderful inventions. So yes, I put mine in my airing cupboard, which is why I could never sell this, because that is just between me and my family, really. So if you're a home baker and you're running a business from home, you can't do that. You'll have to get a proofing oven, which is basically what your your local bakery does. You can turn your oven into a proofing oven, turn it on for like 50 degrees C for, I don't know, 10 minutes, let it cool for a second, and then pop it in there. And you're going to want to put this, as the recipe says, in a warm area for about an hour and a half. Before I pop this in the proofing oven, if you want to support the channel, do me a favor and just hit that subscribe button, please. So let's go pop this in the proofing cupboard, and we will be back. Now, one of the things you do want to do every 30 minutes, you want to do your slaps and folds. That's right. Always slap your dough, folks. Because what it ends up doing is it ends up building up the gluten even more, okay? So you want to do that the first 30 minutes, then at the top of the hour, and then you're letting it rest for 30 minutes. And then we deal with the shaping for the loaf. Okay, at the half an hour mark, what you want to do is just take it out, just like we had before, and you should see, so it'll stick a little bit to the bottom of the bowl. That's fine. Continue using your very clean countertop, please. And all you're going to do is you're going to kind of grab the bottom here, and you're going to stretch and fold. Turn it, stretch and fold. Stretch and fold. And you want to go all the way around the circle of the dough. And as you do, you'll feel it getting tougher and tougher. It's like it's getting stronger. That is the gluten sticking together. And you make your little ball once more. That's just something I like to do. Boop. Put it back in the bowl. Recover it, and another half an hour. Do that twice, and then we're going to start forming into your loaf pan. Now, once 90 minutes is up, we get to what is called the shaping of the dough. And in your bowl, or whatever you're containing it in, you should have seen a significant rise in dough. Even before the first 30 minutes. By the first 30 minutes, you should have seen a rise in dough. And if you didn't, then that means either your temperature's off, or you have old yeast and it's dead. And now we get to what bakers call the shaping of the dough. And what we're going to do is we're going to use what is called a Pullman. So a Pullman loaf pan. Excuse the sound there. And what it is, all it is a rectangular pan. I got this off of Amazon. It's nothing super special. I think it was like 19 quid or something like that. I'll put the link in the description. But this is basically what your commercial loaves are made in. You'll see these holes at the bottom, and basically they're vents. All it does is it kind of helps keep the moisture of your dough in the pan or in the loaf pan as it's baking, and it kind of steams it in a way. I highly recommend getting something like this. You can experiment with like a little loaf pan like this if you have it, but it's not the same thing. It's not going to create the same type of outcome that you'd like, that you're used to. All you're going to do is you're going to roll it out. It shouldn't stick to the countertop too much. I use olive oil spray. Works just fine. So you're just going to coat the... Sorry about, let me get this on camera. You're just going to coat the inside pretty well. And then you're going to use that as your measuring stick as you shape your dough. All right, so I roll it out. Then you're going to do what's called braid it. Always grabbing from the bottom here, and you're folding over like a braid as we go, all right? And then you're going to roll it up like that. So you're rolling it out to the length of your Pullman, right? Now, depending on the size of your pan, depends on the weight of the dough. So I will put, so for 700 grams, 700 gram recipe, I will put the specific size for this flour weight recipe in the link. So you can get whatever size pan that you need if you don't have it already. And one of the things you want to do is you want to spread, which I haven't been doing here because I've been thinking about talking to you. You want to kind of spread from the center because you don't want your dough bulking up. You don't want your bread bulking up in the center of the loaf. All right. So once we got that in there, just kind of tamp it down. So you tamp it down a good bit. To make sure, and this will grow. So this is one last final step, and this will grow in shape into, this is the final proof, basically. There is no prescribed amount of time. There's too much and there's not enough. And the goal is to wait for this to rise till it's about here, almost to the lip. If you go too long where it's kind of overflowing, that's going to overproof and you're going to miss the mark as far as by the time you put it in the oven. Okay, so about 40 minutes later, we are here. We're just about to the top. Our oven has been preheating at 200. We just pop it in. I put it in that direction. 45 minutes later, what we get, you can just shake it like that, and it should fall straight out. And one way is the classic way to test is just give it a knock. Should be pretty springy. And it is very hot, so don't handle it too much. Okay, so why put yourself through all that? 3 hours of work to get something that I can already get at the store for £1.50. Well, A, the flavor profile is just so much better. The family tends to go through it a lot faster. One of my friends that I gave the recipe to, he's got a family of 4, and he just keeps saying, he's like, mate, I gotta make 3 or 4 loaves a week because they just eat that much more. However, also, interestingly enough, you will find that your sandwiches that you make with it are a bit more filling, a bit more fulfilling. And that has to do with the ingredients. So if you made it at home, you'll find that it's just flour, water, milk, yeast, and a bit of oil. That's it. If you buy it at the store, what you'll find, if I put it up here on the screen, and on top of wheat flour, they also put wheat gluten in it. Remember earlier when I was talking about how they fortify the commercial loaves? Well, wheat gluten is one of the ways that they fortify it. Also, you'll notice in store-bought loaves something called emulsifiers. E481, E471, E472E, and soya flour as well. Well, what the heck does that mean? Here is world-famous Dr. Lustig to explain a few things that I can't.
The emulsifiers turn out to be extraordinarily problematic. That's what you put in your clothes washer. Tide is an emulsifier. So what happens if you swallow a detergent? You chew through the mucin layer. It actually dissolves the mucin layer off those intestinal epithelial cells, allowing for this systemic and gut inflammation, actually driving the inflammatory process. So we want to promote metabolism by making mitochondria work better, and we want to suppress inflammation. And most of the inflammation is at the level of the gut. In both cases, the food is the problem. So what I would say is eat real food. Eat food that came out of the ground or animals that ate the food that came out of the ground. And if you do that, you'll be fine.
That's for dang sure. But there's a much simpler, easier way to do this, to test. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a toaster. Bread here. And I'm using a 50-50 slice just to keep it fair on the ingredients. So we got the store-bought bread here, and we will put in the homemade bread here. So they're approximately about the same size. Store-bought's a little bit taller. I could have proofed my dough a little bit more, but hey. And we'll put it on a number 3.5 and let her rip. Hey, that's toast. Okay. So, what we have here is failure to communicate. What you will find if you get, excuse me, let me shrink down. So with toast, what you will find store-bought will be a lot more toasted than your homemade. Generally, we have to put this in for 2 cycles. Why is that? That is because when you toast your store-bought bread, you're not really toasting water, flour, and yeast anymore, because over time the water evaporates while it's sitting on the shelf. Pretty much, you're toasting E471, which is keeping this together. Which is also why, because your homemade doesn't have E471 and E475 and basically emulsifiers or anything like that, it's why it goes off faster. Bread should only last, I don't know, maybe 3-4 days, something like that, which if you're making your own loaves, you need to put it in the freezer. So store-bought stuff, no good. So I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as my family enjoys it. Just be prepared that you'll end up making a lot. And experiment around with it. I'm a fan of the 50-50, but if you want to go full white, then you're just going full 700 grams of just strong white. Coming up, I'm going to be doing a few tips and tricks videos. And also I'm going to be bringing out next spaghetti bolognese recipe, my very popular spaghetti bolognese recipe, which my partner's a little bit like, why are you giving away the farm here, buddy? And also I'm going to be doing my pork belly recipe, which you only think you've had pork belly until you've had this. And if you like this episode, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. And just remember, life is too short for bad food. Enjoy.